This video is an extract from the 12-lesson Moodle plugin development by example course. A link to the course page is in the description. But before we start, if this video proves to be useful and informative, please don't forget to like it. So, Moodle's JavaScript framework. Now, Moodle had been using, and still bits of it still using it, the Yahoo User Interface library framework. That's been the framework of choice for Moodle JavaScript. But there's been no further development taking place on the UI library, which started life in 2005. So since Moodle 2.9, there's been a push to using jQuery and modules using the AMD API. There's a link to the AMD API stuff for you to follow and find out more. Okay. So Moodle includes jQuery as an AMD module for the framework, for the JavaScript framework. So that means jQuery is available to all AMD JavaScript and can be listed as a dependency for your module and required to load it. Okay. In Moodle 3.9, jQuery 3.4.1 is standard. I'm not quite sure. I think it's still 3.4.1 in 3.11, but you can always go and have a look at the documentation to make sure you know what you're dealing with. So in terms of Ajax, Moodle definitely prefers the use of JSON rather than XML. So Ajax functionality is provided as a JavaScript module called core/Ajax. However, it's really the module that's in Moodle is designed to work really well with web services, and sometimes you find yourself having to use the $, which is jQuery, .ajax to do other stuff Ajax related. So you can have a look at the documentation. Again, there's a link for you to have a look at the Ajax aspect of the JavaScript framework. Then we've got jQuery's UI, user interface libraries. Now, it's not recommended to be used with Moodle because some of the CSS actually conflicts with Bootstrap, and even if you're doing something outside of Moodle, I've heard of issues where UI and Bootstrap don't play nicely together. Okay, so but if you really want to, there is an AMD module in Moodle to be able to use it. So the complications with JavaScript now. Since Moodle 3.8, even in developer mode, your JavaScript is served minimized, right? So the setting that we discussed earlier on in lesson 2 about your config settings for your development environment. In fact, it might have been lesson 1, but anyway, we've come across this, the cache.js configuration setting in your config.php file. Okay, if that's set to false, then Moodle will send the corresponding source map files for the modules in developer mode, so you can still debug your JavaScript is much easier than trying to look through minimized JavaScript. Okay, right. And since you got to sort of compile your JavaScript, then you have to look at the JavaScript modules page on the Moodle site to look at what you need to install, and this is stuff you put on your development server. It's not what you put on the live server. It's just to turn your JavaScript into minimized JavaScript using those tools on the screen. So the core modules, so there are several core modules that are available to you to use in your JavaScript. So you've got core/config, so you can work with configuration settings, so you kind of get config, set config stuff. Language strings, so you can use your language strings in your JavaScript. Notifications, so you can notify users of particular issues, so alert boxes, etc. You've got a URL module, and we've spoke about the Ajax, and we also got a Moodle core module for working with Moodle Windows, and all of the core modules are defined in the lib amd scr source directory, and you can have a look at the documentation at that link as well. So now let's think about our plugin. So we are going to use to collect this audio feedback, we're going to use JavaScript's own media devices interface. There's a link to it there. We're also going to use the media recorder object from the core JavaScript functionality, and we're going to wrap all this up in an AMD module. Now I've put on this presentation. You can download it from that particular URL on the screen. So switching back to our code, I've taken the opportunity to download the AMD folder and stick it in the plugins directory. So the AMD is the folder in which your JavaScript needs to live in, and after you've run the tools, you'll have a build and a source folder in there. And let's have a quick look at recordme.js. So I'm not really going to go into the functionality in the actual script itself. You can do that on your own, but basically to just talk about a couple of things. So what we've got coming through is JQuery, the core string, which I mentioned in our presentation, and the core notification. These are the modules that are coming in, and they will be defined as $ for Ajax, for the JQuery, string for the string, and notification for the notification. Okay. We are in one thing to note in here is that we are not going to be using the core Ajax functionality. In fact, we will be using $Ajax for our Ajax calls. Okay, so you can look through the file and read through it, but remember you need the build and the minimized JavaScript and the map files defined for it to work after Moodle 3.8. So before I close this file, something else. If you look down here, we've got our get strings, and we are calling through some strings. So using our core AMD module, we get these strings for our JavaScript, and so we'll need to go and define them. So I'll just close this file and we'll go back to define the strings. So let's now consider how we actually get the user to provide the feedback. So we'll go back to our class and we'll add in some functionality. So we have a new function here, get form elements for user. Okay, and what gets passed into this function or the method is a grade, a Moodle quick form, data, and the user ID in question, the user who's actually using the system at the time. Okay, so we set our parameters for passing to our JavaScript. Okay, we set our post URL to get recording PHP, which we have not defined yet. So we're going to have a file of script that's going to collect the recording. So we've set that to our post URL. The maximum duration, we get the configuration setting that we've dealt with earlier. The grade ID from the grade is a standard object, and the context ID to get the context of our current assignment. Okay, and then here is where we include as such our JavaScript. So page requires JS call AMD, and we give it our assignment feedback record me, call the init function with the parameters when you call it. So that's setting up our JavaScript for the page. So that's it for the presentation. To watch other extracts from the course, click on the playlist link, or alternatively, watch the video describing the course content. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and thanks for watching.